Because that's literally what almost happened in my own life. 98% of all people in jails today started with that first drink. 85% of over 500,000 people in correctional institutions today committed their crimes while under the influence of a mind-altering substance, drugs or alcohol. And many of them don't even remember committing the crime. But that's what it'll do to you. And all of a sudden, this tremendous commitment that I had and everything else kind of went down the drain. I didn't have it anymore, and I'd played so much up until that time when I was 14, 15, going on to 16, 17, but all of a sudden I had time on the weekends to do other things. I saw the opposite sex for the first time in my life. You see, I was completely obsessed with basketball. I didn't do whatever other people did. My God was basketball. Their God was sex, alcohol, and whatever else. But I didn't see any of that until I was 14, and then my eyes opened up. And I enjoyed it, and I started getting into it. And it was like a little toehold in my life, you see, because that's the way the enemy works. He just gets a toehold in your life. That's all he wants. He wants a toehold because we all try to justify things we do. And then that toehold led into Pete Maravich became a foothold, and the foothold became a stronghold, and that stronghold became an entire possession. I'm not scared to tell you here I was an alcoholic. I can't get people to write that up because I've never been to a clinic or anything. And all my friends drank just like I did, and they were alcoholics too. And the thing about it was that as I kept following my own desires, because see, I chose the road I wanted to go down. I can't blame God for anything. See, we have a choice here, and I had my choice. And I picked that broad road. It talks about two roads in the Bible, the broad one and the narrow one. I chose the broad one. I was fulfilling my own fleshly desires, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a great deal because there's a great pleasure in sin. There's a lot of pleasure in it. Because if there wasn't, nobody would do it. But I found out now that the pleasure of sin is not, at the beginning, is not worth it at the end. At least the sting, that is. When I was 18 years old, I was asked to go out to Lake Arrowhead out in San Bernardino, California, to a campus crusade for Christ. They asked me to come out there and do what you just saw here, what was called Showtime. They said, would you come out here and do your clinic, Pete? I said, well, sure, that'd be great. I'll bring one of my friends, and we'll just come out there, California. I've never been there. That'd be fun. So we got in the car, and I was just reaching my 18th birthday, literally right before what was to be called the Pistol Pete era in Southeastern Conference basketball. And so I drove out there, and we partied all the way out, and we had fun, and we chased girls, and we just were in every bar we could find and everything else. It took us 3 or 4 days to get out there. And as I drove up on this campus, I noticed that there were people sitting around praying and holding hands under trees and things of this nature, and I became very embarrassed. I didn't want any part of that. And I told my friend, I said, hey, we got to hurry and get out of here. I'm going to do this clinic and get out of here. These people are nuts. I mean, what are they smoking? And put that beer down. We don't want to, we don't want to see them with this beer. So I checked into this place, and it was for 3 days. And I asked them, when am I supposed to do my clinic? And they said, well, Pete, we're not sure yet, but if you just bear with us. We're going to have you over here with this group. And I said, what do you mean? What am I going to do? He says, well, nothing. Just nothing to do. We'll just put you here. Would it be all right? And I said, okay. So I stayed with this group. My friend went with another group. And for 3 days, I finally heard who Jesus Christ was. I could never, if I would have died before that, I could have never claimed ignorance. But the thing about it was I heard how he had died for me. I heard, number one, that I wasn't a very good person. See, I thought I was always good. I mean, I'm a pretty good guy. I never really hurt anybody. I mostly hurt myself. I'm sure I'd go out and get drunk. And alcohol was such a stronghold in my life. Everybody's got something that strongholds them, don't they? That's what I thought, because everybody I went out with did. It was just something else. It was the same thing I did. And I heard that I wasn't very good. And the guy kept reading out of the Bible. He read me Romans 3:10-23, where it says, I'm no good and there's no one righteous. Not one. In fact, I'm just a worm, a piece of decaying wood. I didn't like that. I didn't like it at all. Because, see, I didn't understand. And then he told me how Jesus Christ went to the cross for me. And see, it didn't have an impact on Pete Maravich. I wasn't concerned about that. To me, it was just a story. It was a story. It was nice. That's nice. See? But he told me that Christ paid the sin for me, the penalty. Romans 6:23. He paid it. And that if I was ever going to be saved, it was only by the grace of God, because no matter where you go to church or how many times you go to church, or there's some people born in a Christian home think they're Christians. It's like saying if you're born in a garage, you're a car. And it just doesn't work that way, and we have a lot of churchianity today and not Christianity. But he kept going through it, you know, and he said, and this is this. This is like this. Ephesians 2:8-9. He went through that. We're saved by grace, through faith, and it's a gift of God, not of ourselves. I started thinking about it and everything, but it really didn't have an impact. Not at all. And then he got to John 3:16. I don't know how many of you even know any of these verses. I could repeat them all to you, but I don't want to do that. John 3:16 is probably the most talked about verse in the Bible. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Some people putting forgotten Son in there instead of begotten, because that's what he is today. But he read that to me, and then he went to, I kind of heard this, and he says, and Pete, let me tell you something. There's no other way to get to heaven. I said, how do you know? I hear there's a lot of different ways. He said, well, if you read your Bible, you'll see in John 14:6, he says, Jesus says he's the only way. He didn't say it was part of the way or some of the way. He says he's the only way. He says he's the only truth. Not part of the truth, some of the truth. He's the only truth. And that means that if Jesus Christ is the truth, then everything that I read in that Bible about Jesus Christ and what he said is the truth, or it's a complete lie. There's no middle ground, friends. There's no middle ground. You see, I believe that book that's on that table there is 100% the inerrancy of God. In fact, I know it. See, I know it now. But after the end of 3 days there was no impact on my life. We went out to the beach. Bill Battle, who was an All-American football player, and with a bicep as large as my thigh, said, we're going out to the beach. I'm taking this group with me. We're going to witness for Christ. And I said, what do you mean witness? What is this, Bill? What do you mean witness? What are you talking about? See, because I didn't understand. He said, you just come along, Pete. We just want to show you what we do here. So I went along with him, and we went out on the beaches out there, California beaches, and he goes up to the worst-looking group. This was back during the 60s. This is the most revolutionary time, a rebellious time in our history, probably, that's led to so much of the rebellion today. And yet, he went up to the worst-looking group. Guy had tattoos all over his arm, hair down here. He was smoking a joint, drinking. There was about 4 or 5 of them. They were mean-looking, ugly. They didn't smell very good. Everything. And I stayed way in the background. But you know, the Lord has a way to use people. You see, he went up to this guy who was the meanest-looking guy, right behind his head. He says, you know something? I would really like to share something with you folks. And this guy was literally going to turn around and punch him, I know. Because he turned around and he said, look, go right ahead. Because that bicep was right in his face. And if anything impressed me, it was that. That did impress me. I said, wow, how God gets people's attention. It's amazing. So they witnessed, and I don't remember, I think some of them left right away. They said, oh, you Jesus freaks and all this kind of stuff. And I just kind of turned my head. I didn't want no part of it. At the end of 3 days, there was 1,000 kids. And I was part of it, and Bill Bright, who's founder of the Campus Crusade, gave a message, much like Billy Graham, had an invitation for people to come receive Christ. Then he had them to come publicly and receive him. Lo and behold, my friend was sitting next to me. He got up. I said, what are you doing? He says, Pete, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. I've just received Christ into my life. I said, Kenny, wait a minute, Kenny, it's just something you ate or something, son. And I grabbed him by the arm. I literally tried to steal away his salvation. I said, you don't go up there. You're embarrassing me. I remember saying that. And he pulled away and he went up there. He says, you don't understand. I said, no, I don't. And he walked up there. And I remember sitting there and saying, well, you're not going to get me, God. You're not going to get me. I'm not going out in that highway, dressed in those sandals and that white robe. I've seen those people out there hitchhiking with a little bag. And I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play pro basketball, be in a world championship team, and make $1 million. Boy, that's what I want in life.